Hi, this is Mrs. Bullen with your notes for section 3.3. We're going to be solving some inequalities today, but first we are going to review solving some equations and the warm-up. So for this first one, remember anytime there's a number stuck to a letter, it means multiplication. So the way that we give the multiplication is by dividing 6 on both sides. That's the inverse operation or the opposite. So G is equal to 3. Question number 2, p divided by 6. Usually we don't use this division sign in equations, but if you ever see it, just know that the way that we get rid of it is by multiplying. Usually we see it written like this one over here, but a times by 6 and a divide by 6 will cancel. So we get p is equal to 12. That's where they're balanced. This one, don't think of it as a fraction. I know a lot of students are like, oh, a fraction, I'll just skip it because I don't get fractions. But if you think of it as a division problem instead, you just do the opposite of division, which is multiply. So a multiply and a divide will cancel each other. They're inverse operations. So we get x is equal to 63. Question number 4, last one on the warm-up. Again, we always find the variable, and this time it's over here on the right side, and you see, well, what's stuck to it? It's that times by 8, and so the opposite of times by 8 would be divide by 8 on both sides. So we get s is equal to -7, and that is the answer. Okay, so just some notes here on solving inequalities. This yesterday or 3.2, whenever you did that, we were just doing adding and subtracting. And when you're doing that with inequalities, it's the same exact steps as if you have an equation or an inequality. When we have multiplication and division, there is something that's a little bit different. Okay, so anytime we multiply or divide by a negative number, we have to flip the sign. Okay, multiplying or dividing by a negative number makes us flip the sign because the opposite's true. So for example, 4 is greater than 3. But if I make them both negative, well, now -3 is greater than -4. So anytime I change the sign on both sides, which is what happens when we multiply or divide by a negative, then it makes the opposite true. Okay, so that's the only main difference. So let's look at some problems and see how that actually applies. So question number 1 here on the practice, this is x divided by 8. So the opposite of divide by 8 is times by 8. So I'm going to multiply by 8 on both sides. And you might say, well, we're multiplying by a negative over here, so do I flip it? The answer is no. The only time we flip the sign is when we multiply or divide both sides by a negative. Since the number I multiplied on both sides was a positive, then this would remain the same. So it would just be -40. And that's the answer. And then to graph that, what I know all teachers have you graph a little bit differently. I always like for my students to put a 0 in the middle just to have a relation of where is this negative number. So I'm going to put -40 to the left of 0. I'm going to put a circle here. I'm going to check to see, is there an equal sign under there? Is it greater than or equal to? Nope. So I don't color it in. I leave the empty circle there. And then x is greater than, so those are going to be all the values to the right. You can also, as long as the letter is written first, secret shortcut, make it into an arrow and it tells you which direction to go. All right, question number 2, same thing. Here's my x. This time it's on the right side instead of the left, but we look to see what's stuck with it. Times by 3, so we divide by 3. So we get x is greater than or equal to -8. Again, because the negative is just on the other side there, and it wasn't what I put on both sides, we do not need to flip the sign. I do like to have my students rewrite it so that the letter comes first and then the -8, but then you need to make sure, well, the alligator's eating the x, so when I rewrite it, the alligator still needs to be eating the x. Okay, so I'm going to put a 0 here. I'm going to put a -8 to the left of the 0. I'm going to put a circle, and then I'm going to check, is it equal to -8? Yes, it could be equal to that value. So we color it in because wherever there's ink, that represents a possible solution, okay? And x is greater than, so we're going to go to the right again. And remember, you can also just use this secret shortcut, make an arrow out of the greater than, less than sign. It shows you which direction to go. Okay, question number 3. We are going to be multiplying by -3 on both sides. Okay, and so remember, when we multiply or divide both sides by a negative, this sign flips because now the opposite relationship is true. So over here, -3 times 2 is -6. I flip the sign, and then I have the y. Now again, I want to rewrite it so that the letter is first. You don't have to do that. Just make sure that the alligator is still eating the -6 when we rewrite it. But usually when the letter is first, it's a little bit easier for some students to graph like that. Remember, -6 somewhere over here on the left side. I've got an open circle. I look to see, is it equal to? Nope, so I don't color it in. And then y is less than, so I'm going to go to the left. And again, we can use our secret shortcut. The line tells us to go to the left. Okay. Question number 4. We're going to do the same thing, but we're going to divide on both sides by -7. So remember, anytime I'm multiplying or dividing by a negative on both sides, it changes the sign on both sides. So now the opposite relationship is true. This was a negative. Well, they're both negatives. Now they're both going to be positives. And so the y side is actually bigger now. So I'm going to put a 0. This one actually have room. 3, 4, 5. I'm going to put a circle. I look to see, is it equal to? Could it be equal to 5? Yes. So I'm going to color it in. And then y is greater than 5. So that's going to go that direction. And so again, you could use the little secret shortcut to tell you which direction to go. All right, so let's write an equation, an inequality. So this says you earn $11.25 per hour at your summer job. Write and solve an inequality that represents the number of hours you need to work to buy an iPhone 11 Pro that costs $999. Whoa, that's a lot of money for a phone. Great googly moogly. That's going to take a lot of time. So I know that $11.25 per hour, and I have to make more than or equal to $999, right? At least $999, but it's okay if I make more. So I just want to write the minimum number of hours that I have to work. So I'm going to use my calculator, and I'm going to go 999. Oops, I forgot to write this first. We're going to divide by 1125, divide by 1125. So x is greater than or equal to 1125. We get 88.8. Okay, so I need to work at least 88.8 hours just to get a minimum of $999 to pay for the phone. But who's gonna pay for your phone plan? Other things to think about. Okay, and then this just says write and solve. Okay, so we got it. And then you might want to say that you need to work at least 88.8 hours. Okay, and for this one, there's x's on both sides. So I'm going to go minus 3x. I like to solve inequalities and equations. Anytime there's x's on both sides, I like to look for the smallest variable. And so those are the ones that I would cancel out first. And then that would leave all of my other x's positive usually. Okay, so now this side is 2x minus 6 is greater than or equal to 4. I'm going to add 6 on both sides. And then I have 2x is greater than or equal to 10. Divide by 2 on both sides. So x is greater than or equal to 5. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open circle, then I check to see, is it equal to? Yes, it is. So we color it in. So closed circle. And then x is greater than. And so it actually looks just like that one, huh? So we are going to go ahead and go on to your assignment. I'm going to go over just the odd problems. I would love it if you would try the problem first, pause the video while you're trying it, and then play and check your answer. And then if you need to, you can correct it. But the goal of this is so that you have something to check, not just to copy. Okay. So number 1 on the homework. This one, we're going to divide by 3 on both sides. So we get y is less than or equal to -3. Again, we just put a positive on both sides. There was a negative over here, but since we weren't multiplying by a negative on both sides, we do not flip the sign. So 0, -1, -2, -3. We're going to put a circle here. It could be equal to -3. So I'm going to color in that dot since it could be equal to that value. And y is less than. You can also use our secret shortcut of drawing the arrow, and that tells you what direction, go to the left. Question number 2, I'm going to skip, but you guys are going to multiply by +4 on both sides. Question number 3. This one, we are going to divide by -9 on both sides. So remember, anytime I multiply or divide by a negative, we are going to flip the sign. So we get y is less than -1. So 0. I'm going to put the circle at -1. I do not color it in because it cannot be equal. It has to be strictly less than. So y is less than, or less is to the left. And you could also use this. Okay, so that tells you what direction to go. We're going to skip number 4, but you would be multiplying by -5 on both sides, and that would have you flip the sign, okay? Anytime I multiply or divide on both sides by a negative, we flip the sign. So here we go on this one, -4 on both sides. It's okay if we subtract 4 on both sides. That's fine. Even though that's negative, I'm not multiplying or dividing. It's not changing the sign. I'm just taking 4 away. So I do not flip the sign on this one. 4p is greater than or equal to 8. Divide by 4 on both sides. So p is greater than or equal to 2. So put 0, 1, 2, -1, -2. Open circle, p is greater than. So I'm going to go this way. What did I miss? Or equal to. So that means I have to color in. It could be equal to 2. So I'm going to color in that spot. We're going to skip number 6. You have a couple options on this one. You could divide by 3 on both sides first, or you could distribute the 3 and then work out the problem the rest of the way. Up to you. Question number 7 says, describe and correct the error in solving each inequality. So this one, anytime I have a divide by 3, I need to put a times. Anytime I have a times by 2, I need to put a divide by. So those cancel, so that's good. So I did times by 3 halves on that side also. And then I did 3 times 6 is 18, divide by 2 is 9. And so look what they did. They flipped the sign. But what kind of number was I multiplying by? I was multiplying by a positive number on both sides. So we do not flip the sign. So the sign should have stayed like this. And then, yeah. So it looks like this. And then when you rewrite it, the alligator should still be eating the -9. So we corrected it. And you should also describe, you should say they flipped the sign, but you were not supposed to because we did not multiply or divide both sides by a negative. All right, question 8, we're going to skip. Question 9 says, or sorry, I'm going to skip it. You're going to do question 8. It's an even problem though, so I want you to try that one on your own. You still have to do it. I just am not going to give you the answer because this is your homework, so you should still try it, do your best. Okay, question number 9 says, which inequality represents all possible solutions of this one? Well, I'm going to write it, and before I even look at the choices, you guys, I'm going to solve this problem. So -3n is less than 12. So I'm going to divide by -3 on both sides, and I have n. Remember, anytime we multiply or divide by a negative, we flip the sign, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. Okay, so I have n is greater than -4. So now I'm going to look for that choice, and it is this one right here. Okay, question 10, you guys can try that one on your own. So basically what they're saying is multiply both sides by m to get it out of the bottom. This time you need to multiply it by a -m and then just see which of those graphs match with which one. Okay, that is it for your 3.3 notes.